is, and she says it isn't really her fault, but the fault of her husband. He cheated, and she got her lick back. And now she's in paternity court to figure out who the father of her kid is. Here is how it starts out.
When did you first find out Ms. Guerin cheated on you?
We were together about a year. At the time, we were moving out of my best friend's apartment, and it was just about that I got the truck loaded up with everything. And I went upstairs to grab my last box, and my best friend at the time pulled me aside and told me him and my brother had both slept with me.
What?
I was hurt.
They both?
Your Honor.
Really? What? And it is somehow okay? Because Mr. Deggs cheated on her first? Those aren't even the same things. This is like a hydrogen bomb versus a coughing baby debate. Sleeping with his best friend and brother to get your lick back? But it gets crazier.
Honestly, it just happened. I didn't do it out of spite towards him or anything. It's not because I'm a bad person. At the time, I was lacking affection from him. He was never home. He was always...
I work, Your Honor. I work full time to make sure that her nails and her hair get done.
After he would get off
to make
work,
sure
he
that she
never
was
came
happier.
home. Well, we were drinking and he was showing interest in me, made me feel pretty, and was giving me everything at the time that Jason was not.
I'm so glad he thinks I'm cute.
No, absolutely. I regretted it. It was awkward to know that I was keeping something from my
But you
boyfriend.
slept with my brother, too.
I cannot believe this isn't scripted, yet it isn't. This actually happened. So Ms. Guerin did not even sleep with his best friend to get her lick back? She just did it because he made her feel pretty? That is her excuse? Let's see what else went down in this crazy relationship.
Brother, I was really young at the time, and
You keep talking about how young you were. If you were so young, you shouldn't have been sleeping with everybody. Now,
That's fair enough.
how did you end up sleeping with his
That's fair enough.
brother?
It was an attraction. He was paying me the attention that Jason was not.
Wait, so she slept with his best friend and his brother, and somehow this is his fault because he did not give her all the attention she wanted, which was because he was working. Really? Now this is one nutty case, but it is about to blow your mind a bit more.
We had a lot of problems at that time. We had already cheated on each other. And then I met somebody else that was taking care of me, and I ended up sleeping with him while I was with Jason.
When you give birth to
Yes.
the child, he was there.
Yes, he was there.
I cut forward. I've been there since day one, taking care of this baby and this woman.
Understand why he
Your
was
Honor,
hurt, Ms. Guerin?
I'm not the only one that cheated in this
I had a
relationship.
rough
I know,
childhood,
but
I've
Your
had to
Honor.
deal
But
with
you're
so
the
many
one.
different women.
But you're the one that here.
This is just not Ms. Guerin's fault. Nothing is her fault here, despite the fact that she cheated on Mr. Deggs 3 times. Everything is still someone else's fault. She is not willing to take responsibility for anything. It gets worse too. Here is why she did not tell him he may not be the father.
Decide not to tell Jason right away because I did want the family. I did believe that Jason was going to be a great dad, and that
I
was
am a
something-
great dad. I'm a great dad right now.
During the entire pregnancy and for 6 months after that, you allowed him to believe that he was the father of this child, knowing in your mind that maybe he wasn't. That's correct.
That is correct.
It is difficult to even imagine a more evil parent. This woman slept with her partner's brother, his friend, and then another man. And then she made him believe he was definitely the father of her child throughout the pregnancy, and even 6 months later. How did Mr. Deggs even find this out?
And out of nowhere, she throws at me, "You're probably not even the daddy of Jason anyway."
No,
I
did
crumbled
not
right
throw it
there,
at
started
him like
crying.
that. I would never
What?
do that.
Yeah, guys, Ms. Guerin, do that? Never. She is too good to do that. She may cheat on him thrice with his brother and best friend, but she would never in a million years do something as horrible as tell him he isn't the father of a baby during an argument. Ms. Guerin would never do that. Now let us find out more.
So I wanted to be everything that I could be.
You love your free time
there
and
for
all
her.
the women that you
No,
love
you
to go
love your
hang out
free
with
time
more
and hanging
than
out
your
with this
son.
dude here because
No.
you left Jason for 3 months
Why?
with your
Because
mom
he
and
can
me
provide
so that I
better-
could take care of
because
him
he's better
and you
than
pay
you. I
daycare.
never-
What will you guys do? You guys move.
Let's get some order.
I just want to state that I have never ever left my son and abandoned him. The
From you
reason why
both.
I didn't tell him right away, Your Honor, is because I was really at a horrible place in knowing what I did. But the reaction that I got from him, he was happy and we wanted a family. We were together.
Yeah, I hope it bothered you a lot. At least that would show that you have some conscience to speak of. But let's hear a bit from...
I never try and take the place of his biological father because I'm not his biological father.
And what is it that you do for the child?
I take care of him. You know, when Megan's working, If I have the day off, then of course I'm taking care of him. If he needs to go to an appointment or something, make sure he gets there. It's fun to be around. Of course, he's a 3-year-old. He tests your patience sometimes, but I mean,
I know all about that.
Yeah.
Want Mr. Deggs to be the father?
For me right now, no, I do not want Jason to be the father because every weekend it's drama.
Phew, that is a lot. I cannot understand what Mr. Felton seems to have seen in Miss Guerin, but he should know that if he is ever busy or has to be someplace, Miss Guerin will absolutely replace him without thinking twice about it. Anyway, let us see what the test results have to tell us.
These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostic. In the case of Deggs versus Guerin, when it comes to baby Jason Deggs, Mr. Deggs, you are not the father.
Pace says he will be crushed if he finds out that he is not the biological father of his son, Prince. But he says that is a real possibility because Prince's mom cheated on him with his best friend. And this is how that explosive episode begins.
Caught between the man you're in love with and his best friend.
Yes, Your Honor.
You admit you made a horrible mistake when you slept with both men, but you say you're still hoping with all your heart that Mr. Pace is your son's biological father. Mr. Randolph, you're Mr. Pace's best friend
Yes.
and the second potential father of Prince.
Yes, Your Honor.
So there is a lot on the line for me. That's my little man. We watch TV together. We ball. I'm feeding him cereal in the morning. He's like my real little buddy, and he looks up to me, and I don't want to let him down, basically.
You can see that Mr. Pace really, really loves his son. These cases, where the father loves the son so much and isn't a deadbeat, are the most heartbreaking on paternity court, especially when the man ends up not being the father. Let's see how Mr. Pace even met Miss Fobbs.
Phone number. We went out on a few dates. We kind of bonded real quick. She ended up moving in with me and Mr. Randolph. Shortly after her moving in, she became pregnant. Once we found that out, being that she wanted her own space, we ended up moving into another spot together. And that's where I've been ever since, as far as in the relationship with her.
Wait, what? So Mr. Pace met Miss Fobbs, liked her, and then she quickly moved into the apartment he was living with his best friend? First of all, who moves in with a lover so quickly? This is one strange case. So when did this love triangle begin?
He works at night, so he's never really home with me, and I kind of took that as a feeling of neglect. The situation with me and Randolph was a mistake, a big mistake, the worst mistake I think I ever made.
Oh, we know that excuse well in paternity court. The man gets busy, and the woman starts seeing that as a sign of neglect. And what does she do? Does she talk to him? No, she sleeps with another man, or in this case, his best friend. So how did Mr. Pace even find out?
Well, that's interesting. We were actually in a heated argument at the time that it occurred, but it kind of just got blurted out to me that Mr. Randolph could be a potential father for Prince. Prince was 2.5 at the time, so it was very emotional for me, being that it's my best friend and this is my woman.
This is crazy. Can you imagine how emotionally upsetting this would be? You literally could not make this up if you tried. This is something out of a Hollywood flick. But what does Mr. Randolph have to say about this craziness?
Well, to answer that, Your Honor, I wasn't in the right state of mind. We both was intoxicated. He was out promoting club, and she used to come home from the club intoxicated and, looking for him. He's not there. Me and her talk, and, one night the talk led to something else.
And so was this sex unprotected?
Honestly, Your Honor, I was intoxicated.
Yeah, you were intoxicated, but that is no excuse. And the fact that they did not even bother to get protection is just insane. I cannot even imagine how difficult all of this has to be for Mr. Pace. Here is what Mr. Randolph think about the chances of being the kid's father.
Mr. Randolph, you submitted to the court a childhood photo of yourself
Yes.
and Prince.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you think you look pretty much exactly alike?
Little characteristics, forehead maybe, mouth, but
When you look at this picture, Ms. Fobbs, do you see any resemblance?
No, I don't.
None.
None.
Of course you don't. But here is the thing. These pictures prove that there is a very real possibility that Mr. Randolph could be the child's father. When did this secret even get out? Let's see.
Yeah, I didn't tell him when he was 4. I told him when he was 2.
2.5.
Helped as well.
No, Sam is not in Prince's life. As far as it goes, Prince knows
Like an uncle.
an uncle, and he knows Byron as his dad. That's the way I want it to stay. I don't want him to grow up confused later on down the line, asking me questions as of why didn't I disclose this to him, and him to be feeling like he's neglected and he grew up never knowing.
Well, that is good for you, Ms. Fobbs, but you could have avoided this entire appearance in court if you just did something as basic as not sleep with your boyfriend's best friend. Anyway, here is more.
Mr. Randolph, over 10 to 12, 15 years almost. I don't want to say bros before, but I do want to say that men kind of have a bond that women don't have. Our relationship is under wraps. It's a stressful situation because I look at him and I see this kind of would leave the resentment that I have for him on the table.
That is actually a pretty mature answer from Mr. Pace here. Not a lot of people would have the presence of mind to put all enmity aside in the interest of the kid, but that is what he has done. Now it is time to find out who the baby's father is.
Case of Pace versus Fobbs Randolph. When it comes to 4-year-old Prince Fobbs, and whether Mr. Pace or Mr. Randolph is his biological father, it has been determined by this court, Mr. Pace, you are not his father.
That sucks. Mr. Pace really loves this kid and is broken that the child isn't his. That leaves only one possibility, right? Mr. Randolph definitely has to be the father, right? Well, let's see.
Continuing on with the next result. It has also been determined by this court, Mr. Randolph, you are not.
I don't know what to say.
Do you know who Prince's father is?
No.
That's me. I'm Prince's father.
Clary knows that Mr. Asinato is the father of her son. She says she knows this because the child has a rare blood condition that he must have inherited from Mr. Asinato. Mr. Asinato insists that this is categorically false. Let us find out who is telling the truth here.
You are petitioning the court for a paternity test to prove to the defendant that he is the father of your son, Gage, who has multiple medical needs. You say Mr. Asinato owes you $15,000 in child support, and you demand he pays you what he owes.
Yes.
So, Mr. Asinato, I have to ask you, you owe $15,000
Your
in
Honor,
child
there's
support?
no way that I owe $15,000 on a child that's not
He
mine.
signed the birth certificate.
She's basically roped me into signing a birth certificate for a child that she told me that was mine.
If Ms. Clary is lying, then this is literally the most evil thing you can do to any man. Setting up a man with years of debt over a child that isn't his is nightmare fuel. And that is exactly what Mr. Asinato says Ms. Clary do. And what does Ms. Clary say? Let us find out.
We both were married when we both met. We were separated. I wasn't with my husband for a year and a half whenever I
Your
got
Honor,
to see
that's
my
not
son.
true.
Take me back.
Wait,
here.
I was
Let me
divorced when
understand
my-
this relationship. When you met, you both were married.
I was separated from my wife and I moved into a townhouse, which
Okay.
was next to her and her husband.
And my
Okay.
ex-husband and I were going through issues and we're separating.
Yeah, these two are basically the worst people in the world. Can you imagine how happy their exes would be while watching this episode? They would basically be thanking their stars they got rid of them and finalized the divorce. But it gets better. Of course it does.
We were hanging out next door and we were all friends, hanging over there shooting pool, drinking, having watching movies, and everybody left except for me, and one thing kind of led to another. He made a pass at me.
And how long did it continue before you found out you were pregnant?
That was in 2007. My son was born in 2011. We were living together.
She was
Yes,
not
but-
living with me.
Yes, I was, and I was
She
also
got
paying the
pregnant.
bills.
She moved in with me when she got pregnant because I wanted to do the right thing.
Well, she said that when her son was born, she was living with you. That was right.
Yes, ma'am.
That's correct.
That is correct. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Wait a minute. These guys met while married to other people and then started a really long relationship. This was no one-night stand. They actually moved in together and started living like a couple. So where does the doubt come from?
do know for a fact that she was with somebody else.
Oh, what do you know?
I know Crystal. Crystal was married when she came to my house on the first night.
But you
slept
know,
with
Your
me.
Honor, this other gentleman he's talking about, while we were not together, I was dating somebody else, and we split up 2 months prior to me getting pregnant with my son.
That's not true, Your
And then-
Honor. I know for a fact that on a specific night that she said that she was going out with this gentleman, I called her. Crystal never answered the phone. Not text, nothing. All day, all night. Next day, I get a hold of her. Crystal, where were you? Oh, I went out to dinner with this guy and I got sick and I was in the hospital.
He knew I was seeing somebody else, and what I'd done at that time was none of his business because we were not together.
This is such a weird relationship. Mr. Asinato says it was basically a fling, but there are two problems. A fling does not last for 8 years, even if it is on and off. Secondly, a fling does not move into your apartment. So this dude is lying. Who else is lying? Let us find out.
Did you go to the hospital when Gage was born?
I did.
He was at the hospital when the baby was born. My son was 5 weeks premature and 7'5". See that right there? There's a picture of him at the
Mr.
hospital with the
Asinato,
baby.
this is you.
Yes, ma'am.
In this picture right here, you had no doubt this child was yours.
No.
You thought you were having a child with your girlfriend that lived with you and you all were gonna be a family.
Yeah, some things are not adding up. Ms. Clary previously said she did not really cheat on her husband with Mr. Asinato because they were already in the process of a divorce when she met him. But now she is saying she left her marriage for him? Does that make any sense to you? Anyway, Mr. Asinato was paying big bucks for child support, and now he thinks he is just over that.
What is
Now
this
we can
evidence
tie back up
pertaining
This is
to?
all my payments that I've made except for the 8 months that I've been out of work. Being that I've been paying these
He was working
$1,000
cash
at
those 8
first,
months.
the
First
first
4
year
months.
I was at my job working in the oil field, it was $1,026 a month for one child. One child,
But you
okay?
know, Your
I'm
Honor,
not
I was
an NBA
paid- I
player.
was paid
I'm not a movie star.
$123
I work in the oil
$125 a week.
field. Anyways, regardless of that, she's
Because
always
he
making
quit his job.
accusations that I'm a deadbeat. I don't pay
He
my
is a
child support
deadbeat.
payments. You
He
can
don't
see
pay-
on that
he just
paper
started in the last
that you
6
can see
months
I've
because
made
I got
all
it
my
tied back
payments
up in
except
court.
for that
Last
first
year,
8
I got it
months.
back in court because he was not paying. He's only denying our child because of child support.
This is all so clear and obvious to Ms. Clary. Mr. Asinato is the big bad who is only denying her child because of child support payments. But now he has to step up because she has the ultimate evidence that proves he is her child's father.
My son has thalassemia, which is a medical condition that comes from Italian. It's a Mediterranean descent. He is full-blooded Italian. I'm Native American.
Hold on, Miss Clary, go back and explain this to me. Your son has a medical issue that he deals with called
Thalassemia.
thalassemia.
And it's an inherited, it's a genetic blood disorder, and it comes from people of the Mediterranean.
You brought evidence
descent,
to explain that,
of
Jerome?
Mediterranean
Please hand that to
descent.
me.
Todd is full-blooded
What
Italian.
evidence is that? She prints it up off of online? Really? Is that?
Are you of Mediterranean descent?
No, ma'am. I'm Native American and Irish.
But the gentleman that she was with is
No,
Mediterranean.
the gentleman that I was with 2 months prior to conceiving my son is his.
Well, let us see if that holds up when the DNA test results get out. But let us circle back to Mr. Asinato. Why does he even have this doubt in the first place? Let us find out why, because that may blow this whole building apart.
My doubt is the child looks nothing like me at the time when I had this doubt. This was last December.
Your Honor, my son
Okay?
looks just like me.
Last December,
And,
I took-
last I checked, I was his mother. See, that's my how can you not love that baby? The only reason I agreed to this is because my son is 4. Now he wants to do this because of child support. My son does not deserve
I don't
this.
want to do this because of child support. I want to
It's
do this
off.
because of
But
medical.
you know, he waits 4 years. My son is 4. My son knows him. That's his daddy. And then now he wants to do this.
Well, Gage may know him as his daddy, but that sadly does not matter in the end. What matters is what the test results say, and the DNA test result in this case will definitely shock you. Let's see.
In the case of Clary versus Asinato, when it comes to 4-year-old Gage Asinato, Mr. Asinato, you are not his father.
Kavanaugh has been on paternity court previously and got the wrong man. The man she brought to court turned out not to be the father of her son Malcolm. Now she believes the father of her baby is her mother's friend, Mr. Spence. You heard that right. Here is how it starts out.
You're a friend of Miss Kavanaugh's mother and say her daughter made several attempts to have sex with you. Then after a lapse in judgment, you admit you did sleep with her. Now you say there's a chance you could be Malcolm's father. Miss Kavanaugh,
Yes, Your Honor.
your mother's friend?
Yes, Your Honor. I know how bad it sounds. I was trying to try to seduce him. I was wearing inappropriate things around him.
And why were you doing this?
In all honesty, I was drinking a lot.
Yeah, you were drinking a lot. But most people who sleep a lot do not eventually end up in paternity court testing if the father of their kid is their mom's friend. So something is deeply wrong here. Let us find out what it is.
Friend of your mother's, or did you know whether or not he was intimate with your mother?
That I do not know of. I just know that they were really good friends. Like, that's all I know.
Mr. Spence?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you enlighten the court on the nature of your relationship with Ms. Kavanaugh's mother?
It's like she said, we just friends.
Did you end up being in a position you were sleeping with your really good friend's daughter?
It was like she said, came over a couple of times. She was in inappropriate gear. The first time, I shunned it off. Second time, I said, hey, watch yourself. Third time, it's starting to look good.
And then fourth time, they got down to making a baby, and that baby might be little Malcolm here. At least that is what Ms. Kavanaugh thinks. But now to the million-dollar question. How many times did this baby-making activity happen?
Times were you intimate with her?
Once.
Just once?
Just once.
Just one time, Ms.
Your
Kavanaugh?
Honor, I do not believe it to be one. It was at least twice, but that's just how I remember it.
So, when you found out you were pregnant, did Mr. Spence's name come to mind immediately?
No, Your Honor. It really was like, I thought Mr. Bowles was the dad. Well, after the court, I started thinking, well, he could be a possibility that Mr. Spence is the father. And I texted him and I asked him, when was the last time we had sex? He told me it was the end of October. So
And when was Malcolm born?
He was born July 9th.
Yeah, so the dates kind of match up. She indeed slept with Mr. Spencer around the window of conception. The question now is, how many people did Ms. Kavanaugh sleep with around the window of conception? Let us see what her mom has to say.
How did it feel to learn that your daughter was sleeping with your very good friend?
It was very devastating, just because the relationship was inappropriate. I felt betrayed. Actually, when we were together, like all in the same room, I noticed them looking at each other a little differently.
You did?
Yeah, I knew my gut.
The woman's intuition.
Exactly. So I questioned each of them. They each denied that anything had happened. Then basically how I found out, one day Megan was angry with me and we had kind of a little tiff or whatever. It was kind of a big tiff, but when we did, she blurted out that you were right, and I did sleep with Ken.
This is just a messy situation all around. Ms. Kavanaugh's mom cannot believe that her close friend could be the father of her grandson. And at this point, he has to be, right? 2 men have been tested previously. The third has to be the charm, right? Let us see.
Did come on to him, and it was probably really a strong come on.
You did admit that in court.
But he is a grown man. He could have told me no.
What would you like to add, Mr. Smith?
First of all, I didn't mean for this to happen. Yes, I got weak. Yes, I am a man. Yes, I could have told you no. Told you no thrice. As far as the baby being mine, I don't know. That's why I'm here to clear this up.
Well, that is good. Mr. Spence is here to take responsibility if the baby indeed belongs to him. That is a good thing, right? Well, it is not such a good thing considering the fact that he has a tiny domestic complication of his own. Here is that complication.
Are you in a relationship?
I'm married.
Okay. Now I do understand why you're hoping he's not your child.
That's not what I'm hoping.
What are you hoping?
I hope for the truth. Doubt is, first of all, it was only one.
The window of conception that she described. Baby born in July.
I'm there, yeah.
So you within the window of conception.
I'm in
You
that
don't
period.
dispute that?
That I do not dispute.
All
That's
right.
why I'm here.
So if he does not dispute the window of conception and admits that he actually slept with her within the period in question, what is he actually disputing? Well, you see, Mr. Spence believes that Ms. Kavanaugh did a little bit of extra sleeping around.
What did she say?
I'm sleeping with other people. I got a boyfriend.
Oh.
Which was Mr. Bowles at the time, Your Honor.
Understood.
Yeah.
But we also know that there was Mr. Scott, too.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah,
He's been tested and he's here. So describe your relationship with Mr. Scott.
I was hanging out at the pool one day. I met him. He told me he had a girlfriend and kids and all this other stuff. So we didn't do anything the very first night, we just drank a little bit, got to know each other. Second night, we hung out, and yes, we did have intercourse. And that went on for like maybe a week or two. And we wore condoms every single time, except for one time.
And that is all a baby needs to happen, folks. Just one time without a condom, and before you know it, you are right here in paternity court. This is crazy because it means Ms. Kavanaugh was sleeping with 3 different men around her conception period. Here is what Mr. Scott thinks.
We understand that you had a sexual relationship with Ms. Kavanaugh.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was during the window of conception. Do you agree with that?
Yes, ma'am.
You were not using protection?
I use protection every time. I don't recall, not using protection.
So you don't recall. Now she says there was an instance when you did not, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you say there was no instance?
No, ma'am. I strongly, I don't believe that, Malcolm is mine.
You don't?
I don't.
Of course he does not. And why should he? This man has a wife and kids, so he has every incentive not to believe that Ms. Kavanaugh's baby belongs to him. Anyway, let's get to the bottom of this. What does the DNA test results say?
In the case of Kavanaugh v. Spence Scott, when it comes to the paternity of 1-month-old Malcolm Kavanaugh, Mr. Scott, you are not his father.
Okay, it seems Mr. Scott was saying the truth when he said he always uses a condom and that he isn't the father of Ms. Kavanaugh's baby. Now it is time to find out if Mr. Spence is the real father or there is a fourth potential father.
In the case of Kavanaugh versus Spence Scott, when it comes to the paternity of 1-month-old Malcolm Kavanaugh, Mr. Spence, you are not his father.
Mr.